All right. Hi, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you for taking time to join us in today's opening ceremony for Avalanche Hacks Summer 2022. Today with here, joining us today will be Jay from Avalabs, along with Gyoho, who will be covering a little bit of an overview of Avalanche later on during the open ceremony section as well. But before we begin, I would really like to take this opportunity to thank some of our sponsors who actually participated at the Avalanche Hacks Summer 2022, namely the Graph Foundation, QuickNote, and Certic as well. And along the way, we might have a couple more people that will be joining us as well. So before we jump in to cover some of the hackathon details, I would like to have to welcome Jay to kind of give us a welcome address. Jay, please.
Thanks, Justin. Hey, everyone. Appreciate the time, and also really thankful for anyone who was able to attend our event in Seoul. Gyuho and I were just there a few weeks ago. I know a bunch of the AngelHacks and Tribe team members were there as well. So that was really exciting. I know for those that were there, knew that there was some issues with the venues that we had, and so really appreciate the patience and also just coming through with full support there. So just kind of zooming out, you might be asking, if you weren't there, what's the relationship with those two events? So when we first started planning this, we were planning a dev-focused event just to get more engagement out of people like you, really understanding who the Avalanche community has as active members, who's interested in actually trying the Avalanche platform and technologies alike, and just all over the globe, what types of people are all around. And so with our focus in Seoul, that was related to some sort of just schedule that we had for the year. We were understanding, okay, maybe we could set that as a kicking off point where people who are in the Asia Pacific area, people who are in the Seoul and Korean area as well, can come out and meet the team, but meet also leaders that are part of the community, major dApps like Trader Joe, Kerbata, things like that. A lot of the team members there from those projects as well. And so I think it was a really nice meshing of personalities, and then also different types of people, like I mentioned before. So as we fast forward, now we're picking up the virtual side. The reason why we wanted to make sure we had a virtual hackathon is for accessibility. That was the main thing. What's really important to note is with Avalanche itself, we haven't actually been pushing too much of the virtual hackathon side of things since the beginning of this platform. Just for a quick recap on history, the Avalanche platform was launched almost 2 years ago on September 21st, and that's the anniversary is coming just around the corner. And so we felt like that was a good way to really understand where we are at as a community, but also where we're at with the technology. There's plenty of new pieces of tech that developers can use for Avalanche, also a lot of new tooling and just better understanding of the technology. There's also plenty of opportunities and perhaps areas of growth as well. So along the way, it doesn't matter how small or big your idea is. We want you to try and flex your muscles and really build those developer muscles alongside the Avalanche community ideally, but if not, that's okay too. And so if you feel like there's certain things that are accelerating your understanding of Web3, great, please let us know. We're always open to hearing those points of feedback, and also just understanding, again, like what's working really well. That's amazing validation for the team, and then understanding which direction we should continue going and which ones we likely shouldn't either. And then the flip side is true as well. We really would love to know what the weak points are and where we could be improving. So hopefully the next version of this event, or even something else in the future, you're going to be much more familiar with the tech, also much more familiar with some of the opportunity zones, and hopefully the team or even the community was able to address your pain points and make sure that you don't have them the next time around. So it's a much better experience overall. So that's kind of the overview of what we're doing here. We have about a month in the event itself, and we also have plenty of touch points, including workshops from my colleague Yuho and a bunch of others as well. We also have plenty of office hours, and again, just time to really build those ideas that you want to put to practice. So I think the thing that I was asking Justin and the AngelHack team earlier is just the logistics of GatherTown. So I know we've been using that platform as a collective community for a while, and excited to just see how that works out for this implementation, as we're kind of trying to create an in-between between the soul activation, which is of course in person, and then a little bit of this format, which is a little bit more for static. So excited to see you guys there. I'll be kind of chiming in here and there depending on the schedule, and I'm sure a bunch of my other colleagues will be doing the same. But otherwise, excited to see what happens at the end of this. And if anything comes up in the meantime, don't feel like you have to hold back, and make sure to please reach out to any one of our team members, any one of the AngelHack members, or even some of the community leaders that are helping move this along. So excited to see what happens, and appreciate you guys participating, and hope for the best, and see who ends up winning out at the end, with all the different prizes that Justin will be overviewing in a bit.
All right. Thanks, Jay, for the welcome address. So just kind of quickly run through today's agenda in itself. Just kind of briefly introduce what to set a tone for today's session, essentially covering a little bit basic information about the hackathon, what are the tracks that you can really work with, and the prizes up for grabs. Some of the mechanics for the hackathon before we kind of move on for Yuho to actually cover an overview of Avalanche. Towards the end, we'll just cover some of the questions that you have, be it on the hackathons or anything that, about the Avalanche that Jay and Yuho can actually address them later on as well. So just a quick introduction that along this session today, if you have any questions with regards to the hackathon or anything with regards to the Avalanche, do drop them in the Q&A box in this Zoom channel. For those who are actually joining us live on YouTube, you may drop your questions on the chat box, and we'll get it to them later on as well. For those who are also joining us on GatherTown, you can also utilize the opportunity to reach out to any of the folks from Avalanche team to just kind of ask them as well during the networking sessions on GatherTown as well. So quickly moving on, Avalanche Hacks Summer 2022, essentially it's really about focusing on disruptive technologies such as GameFi and DeFi, because this has really continuously gained momentum in the Web3 scene. And this hackathon essentially would it's focusing on groundbreaking projects that can be built with the utility of Avalanche, which is the blazing fast, low cost, and eco-friendly platform itself. So there are two main tracks they'll be focusing for the hackathon. First of all, will really be on DeFi. And the idea of DeFi at the end of the day, it's about how we can actually utilize Avalanche infrastructure to actually attract and onboard next wave of DeFi users moving on to it as well. Couple of areas that you can kind of look at would be when you're kind of working on ideating for the project submissions. Some of the key ideas that we have actually provided for you as a point of reference would be that you can start visiting from a DeFi primitive standpoint. You can also look at infrastructure and tooling basis for DeFi, and also accessibility and education itself. The idea here is really about breaking down different parts that you may potentially be expert in or have some experience in to kind of build and kind of introduce into the DeFi scene using Avalanche as well. The next part about GameFi will really be leveraging on Avalanche to explore new mechanics for Web3 gaming, and in order to create a fun and interactive experience for gamers. Similarly, we have actually provided a couple of key areas that you can kind of consider while approaching the project submission. One would be the game design, how you can explore, for example, from a play to earn to play and earn kind of models. Also utility of NFTs in blockchain games, for example. The other part will be infrastructure and tooling. Similarly, some examples will be creating Web3 gaming marketplace, creating a gaming infrastructure to enable developers to integrate Web3 elements into some of the existing projects out there. or could be exploring intersections of gaming and DeFi by building tools to enable game developers to fundraise from their communities. The other part will really about education, how you can onboard next wave of Web3 natives with gamified education mechanics as well. Beyond these two main tracks of DeFi and GameFi, we have also introduced sponsored bounties, of which you can actually take on while working on your main tracks itself. From the three sponsors that we do have, Quick Note, the Graph Foundation, and Certic, they have actually put out something simple that you can kind of leverage on while attending a project submission for the hackathon. Of course, this is not exclusive to tying them together with any of the two main tracks, which you are highly encouraged to. But you can also work on them on silo, meaning that you could just kind of take on the bounties if that's something a little bit more confident for you in order to put in practice what you have learned with regards to your knowledge and skill sets on building on blockchain. Of course, at any point of time, we do have a pool of mentors that are there to kind of help you along, be it building for the main tracks or the sponsors track, sponsors bounty, as we kind of move along as well. So one thing that I'd like everyone to kind of take note of is that all project submissions are actually welcome, regardless of the complexity of your idea. As Jay mentioned, I think this is really an opportunity for us to visit what can Avalanche be utilized for. So in itself, we really welcome people who are really new to the Web3 scene, or even those who have been building in the Web3 scene for a while to kind of contribute to the project submissions as we move along in this hackathon itself for the next 4 weeks. As mentioned earlier on, we do have a panel of mentors who will be guiding you along throughout your 4 weeks journey with us through this Avalanche Hacks Summer 2022. These mentors have actually allocated their own time to actually help you to help you along with your project submissions. Some of the suggested ways that you can actually get hold of the mentors, first of all, would be through the mentors office hours, which are arranged for 30th, 31st August, 13 and 14 September. These are an allocated 2-hour session of which teams can actually book out a time with the mentors for a 15 minutes time frame to just kind of go through certain of the ideas that they have actually come up with. Or similarly, if you have any roadblocks that you face during your building phase for the hackathon submissions, they will be available to kind of help you. The mentor booking form can actually be found on the participants guide, which you will receive the moment you have actually registered for the hackathon itself. Of course, 2 other channels that you can reach out to the mentors. One would be by dropping your questions at the Hackathon help desk channel on Discord. Essentially, this is actually a community space where all hackathon participants will gather together, and it's an opportunity for you to form teams and drop your questions as we move along in the hackathon. Last but not least, you may also connect with the mentors personally at your own free time, just in case you have burning questions that you'd like them to be resolved before or after any of the mentor office hour sessions that has been put up. So we do have for the 2 main tracks, which is DeFi and GameFi, 50,000 USD up for grabs. First, second, and third place will walk away with 12,000, 8,500, and 4,500 respectively for DeFi and GameFi track. And as for sponsors bounty, they are of varied amount that you can kind of look at it. Essentially, one winner will actually be selected for attempting the sponsor bounty as well. Of course, we do have a panel of judges that will be assessing the projects post the project submissions period. And they will, if you would like to kind of get in touch with them, just kind of understand any of the use case format that they're kind of looking at when it comes to assessment of the projects, feel free to reach out to them for any clarifications as well. So all projects will be assessed by 5 main components. One would be mass usability, essentially how feasible the idea is and how adaptable is it across other integrations that's currently available. Secondly, will be technical complexity, the level of skills or knowledge that is actually required to build the submission. Thirdly, the ecosystem impact. We will assess its impactfulness and usefulness in the Avalanche ecosystem as a whole. Fourth, the originality of the project. And last but not least, for sponsor bounties that if you're kind of working on, there may potentially be additional requirements that you will have to work your project against, which will also be information that's available on the participants guide as well. So key agenda, kind of what's lined up for the next 4 weeks. Today in itself and the session that you're attending right now, it's actually the opening ceremony. Later on, Gyuho will actually be covering an overview of Avalanche platform, essentially, to just kind of give you a basic understanding about Avalanche before we kind of kicked in to next the virtual networking session that's going to happen on GatherTown. The GatherTown session essentially will be for people to kind of know new folks and also an opportunity for you to find team members to form team with if you have not already done so. The next couple of days will be filled with technical workshops. We have lined up sponsors and Ava Labs representative who will be covering with you various topics to help you get acquainted to the technology and most importantly to have you upskill your knowledge in order to work on the project submissions as well. The next 3 days, which is going to take place on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. First session is going to take place at 12 p.m. UTC. And the second session will begin at 1 p.m. UTC. So if you would like to have the calendar of events locked down on yours, you may also download the calendar, which is accessible via the email that will be sent to you upon registration. But if not, you can also find them on the participants guide as well. So mentioned previously, mental office hours will take place on the 30th, 31st of August. And 13 and 14 of September. These will be sessions that will be taking place from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. UTC. And last but not least, the most important date that you should remember would be the submission deadline, which is going to be on 18th of September, Sunday at 11:55 p.m. UTC as well. So do keep note of the time. This will be the most important time that you need to remember as well. Closing ceremony will take place the following Wednesday on the 28th of September after we have gone through a week of judging with the panel of judges as well. So do kind of stay tuned as we will use the opportunity to actually announce the winners as well. Quick overview of the GatherTown. Essentially, basically, you will actually be given a link once you have actually registered for the event, or if you have actually saved the calendar, event calendar to your own, the URL will actually be made available. Just enter the password Avalanche Hacks Summer 2022 ! And you will be able to access the space. In the space itself, a quick overview, there will be an events area, which is also where you will be participating potential sessions moving forward as well. But if not, the green zone will be networking area where you can meet different individuals to kind of bounce off ideas, to kind of share some of their experiences, or, to just kind of understand the skill sets of every individual. The red zone essentially will be team formation area. If you like to form teams, head on to the red zone and, all the other folks who are similarly looking for teams to join will join you in the space. Hopefully you'll be able to find your right people to actually form teams with. And last but not least, there will be mentors room where you will meet the mentors during the various mental office hours as well. Right. So let me pass on the time to Gyuho, who will cover the overview of Avalanche. Gyuho, the time is yours.
Yep. Thanks, Justin. And then hello, everybody. Let me share my screen. Okay. My name is Gyuho. Today we will talk about Avalanche overview and the consensus. And we believe Avalanche is special because we have novel consensus and the Sumnet. And then that's what makes Avalanche scalable and extendable and customizable. And then that's what makes Avalanche a best DeFi platform and a gaming platform to build Web3 and the metaverse. So like I said, my name is Gyuho, working on platform and protocols at Ava Labs, and very happy to be presenting here. talking about all the exciting things about consensus and then Avalanche ecosystem. So yeah, we have a lot to cover today. So I will briefly explain Avalanche and then platform. And then Aaron and then Gabriel from our labs platform team will talk more about the subnets. And then, but this session will be like focusing on the topics of consensus. And then the link is here. And then I will be sharing the link on the Discord as well. Let me share it right now. Okay. So yeah, first off, what is Avalanche? So the mainnet was launched only 2 years ago. We are EVM compatible, so you can bring all Ethereum tools and then the apps to Avalanche. And then we built the protocol based on the novel consensus algorithm with optimized EVM, which makes it scalable and it is reliable. Like there was no downtime or chain reorg because our consensus has instant finality. And then we have Sumnet that enables the creation of custom blockchains for different use cases. So our labs, we are the team behind the protocol, and Gun, the founder, published the Karma paper in 2003, the first P2P cryptocurrency system that uses proof of work for minting. That was 5 years before Bitcoin. And at our labs, we provide blockchain as a service. So basically, if you are like build a game, you may not want to deal with the breaching, hacks, all the other foundational layers. So we do all the undifferentiated heavy lifting, so builders can focus on their users. So fast forward to today, like in July, the network peaked at close to 3.6 billion requests per day. And the other day, we just hit the all-time high transaction count, 1.5 million transactions per day. So, most important, the low latency was sustained at all times, like with instant finality. And even more important, like there was no outage, like there was no downtime. So more chart here, like this is what we called the Sumnet Effect. In the primary network, seed chain or the EVM chain, red in the graph, you see the slow increase in the usage, whereas the DeFi Kingdom Sumnet, like green in the graph, like spikes more dramatically. So like imagine all these different apps competing on the same chain. All transactions will compete for the same block space. And as a result, the gas price will spike for all users. Just like in distributed systems, like if you have a system that is multi-tenant, like the system is very likely to be oversubscribed and overloaded because there is no isolation. And then also, if anything goes wrong in one of those apps, you can have correlated like failures. But in Avalanche, each chain is feature or application specific, so we say it's more reliable and then more scalable. So just to recap, like we have a consensus with instant settlement, and then we are globally distributed and then decentralized. And then we horizontally scale with Sumnet. Now let's talk about the consensus. In order to put everything into perspective, like we will go over each family of consensus and then explain why Avalanche consensus is special and then better for the permissionless blockchain. So what is consensus? Like assume multiple people proposing multiple values at the same time. Like consensus is a mechanism to choose one single value amongst all proposed values. So in the context of a blockchain, consensus answers the question of whether this transaction should be included in this block or not. Also to clarify, proof of work and then proof of stake are not consensus algorithms. They are civil control mechanisms. Like again, like a POW by itself, like proof of work is not a consensus mechanism. It's like if you take a look at the Bitcoin, they use the longest chain selection rule. And then also likewise, like a POS, proof of stake, does not achieve the consensus by itself. It has to be coupled with a consensus protocol such as PBFT or Tendermint, like for Cosmos or Avalanche, in order to make decisions. So just to recap, POW or POS by itself does not give you agreement, like it only like giving you the rate limiting. So with that said, so first family of consensus, this is like the most famous and they're still widely used, is the Paxos from Leslie Lamport. Yeah, it is fast since it assumes like small static membership to reach an agreement. But it is permissioned because it does not handle the Byzantine fault and then does not scale like beyond certain membership size. Like most production Paxos clusters only have like a 3 to 5 members at the max. So it is not a good basis for building a permissionless blockchain. So next one. Yeah, Nakamoto consensus is fantastic. Like it's used for Bitcoin, like because unlike classical consensus, like you don't need to know who should be in the system. And then any Bitcoin miner can come up with a block and can participate in the system. But it is slow. Like you need to wait from 10 to 60 minutes for a transaction to be finalized. In fact, like a Bitcoin can only do 3 to 5 transactions per second. And then also not sustainable, like because even when there is no transaction or no decision to make, you have to mine all the time. And we also have another class of protocol, PBFT, like a practical Byzantine fault tolerant protocol. Like it is committee-based protocol. Like the protocol works in rounds. Like somebody proposes, like total committee signs it, and they're collecting the vote from everybody, and the proposal gets finalized. And then, yeah, there are still like 2 or 3 steps inside the protocol on how to pipeline, on how to view changes when somebody is bad, or on how to find a new leader, like when it cannot reach an agreement. But all BFT protocols are basically built on this idea. So just like a classical consensus, it's a quorum-based that is using the voting rather than hash power. And then also just like classical consensus, like usually requires a single leadership. Like some randomized BFT protocols have multiple proposals, like multiple leaders, like which may compete against each other, but their performance is worse than the single leader-based protocols. So yeah, when the membership is small and there is a single leader, like PBFT is very fast. But what happens when you have a large number of nodes in the membership, like let's say like 1,000 or 10,000? In that case, like each node has to sign the proposal, and then the proposal has to collect these signatures and then send these collected signatures to all the other nodes. And then all those nodes have to sign that they have seen the signatures from the quorum. And then as the size of committee grows, the number of messages grows quadratic at minimum. And then view change messages grow at cubic. So extremely bandwidth intensive, and then so it cannot scale. But like great thing about this protocol is it has a deterministic safety model with a hard limit on how many of the participants can be like malicious. Let's say if you have 4 members, you can only tolerate like 1 Byzantine node. So long as the number of adversaries is below the safety like a threshold, it is always safe. Like as long as the network of bad actors does not exceed the 1/3 of the network, like no other way to create like conflicting vote for like 2 different values. But like this line of protocols is extremely like complicated, like which makes it harder to like optimize. So what about this new thing? So we say Avalanche combines the best of consensus, like classical consensus, and then the best of Nakamoto consensus. So yeah, it is like a new paradigm in the probabilistic safety consensus protocol, like inspired by epidemic protocols and then gossip network. And it gives you like quick like finality and then very low latency. And then scales like very easy, like because there's no need for like a precise membership to reach an agreement. And then we also say the protocol is quiescent, like meaning like no energy spent when there is no decision to make. So yeah, here is an independent report from this institute called Crypto Carbon Ratings Institute on Energy Expenditure. And then they find out the network only requires the energy amount of 46 US household per year. Like given that we process millions of transactions every day, the network has like a minimal impact on the environment, like minimal environmental impact. So yeah, let's look at how this works. So the Avalanche consensus builds on the binary consensus, like a meaning that you just want to pick one to make progress. So the definition of making progress here is deciding on a single value, like in this case, red or blue. So yeah, a basic idea is very simple. Like imagine a stadium or very big crowd, and then you don't know how many or who's in it. And then at the beginning, you just pick any color, like either red or blue, like it doesn't matter. But like in the context of blockchain, like you're gonna have to pick one transaction among the conflicting transactions. And then first you sample the constant size of 5 people around you, and then pick the majority, the color. Say you see 3 out of 5 people prefer the color red, and then you also prefer the red. And then the way it works, even if the network is evenly split, if you do the repeated random sampling around you like multiple times, the network very quickly decides the value. And then we can also say the protocol is designed to tip. Like you don't want the consensus to be undecided, like stuck in the middle. So the protocol is designed to tip. So the core idea is so simple that I can just illustrate for you. Like here's the very basic visual representation of the consensus. So you have this node and then neighbors of red or blue. And then it samples the peers and then sees the simple majority, like a red. You see the like a 3 out of 5 is red, so they are the majority. So the actual implementation is slightly different, like a down-colored node, like a black, simply adopt the whatever color is that is in the incoming query. So but the idea is the same. You adopt the majority color. And it becomes the majority color red itself. And then, yeah, this process is repeated in parallel, like in all nodes at the same time. So unlike the classical consensus, you don't need to ask everybody, like for each round. Each person only need to ask the constant sized sample. Let's say like for 1,000 members, you only need to ask like let's say like 15 of them. But like you just repeat that like multiple times. So also the sample size is constant, like a 15, or like you can like configure whatever you want, but the sampling itself is randomized for each round. So every time you ask, you just pick different like members from the network. And then the round complexity is logarithmic, like for each transaction, but amortized over time. It is constant of n for reaching an agreement. So like extremely fast in finalizing your transactions. So yeah, after this meta stable process of like random sampling, like everything converges to the same value. And then like we say that in the white paper, the protocol exploits the properties of like a meta stability. And that is like, if there's a significantly enough bias, then it is impossible for that ever to be pulled back. So, and then there's a point of no return on that cascade. So once you reach the 70 or 80% of the network, you already passed that point of no return. So basically guaranteed to remain skewed that way. And then, yeah, that's why the protocol is called Avalanche. Like meta stability is a precarious, like a state that can be easily disturbed. And then just like the minor disturbance can cause the mountains of snow to slide, the sequence of random sampling perturbs the conflicting state. And as a result, like causing one side to gain more edge over time to amplify the imbalance. So the Gun has much better illustration. The link is on the slide, so please check it out. So yeah, so chain reorganization happens when a block is deleted from the blockchain in order to choose the longer one among the conflicting chains. And then Avalanche Consensus has a subsequent finality. So there is no chain reorg. Thus, like no need to like implement the longest chain rule in our like a protocol. So to be more precise, there could be a short period of time where the Avalanche has like a processing blocks in conflict before they get like a finalized, but we don't expose such processing blocks to the user until they are finalized. So yeah, that is like thanks to the like a fast finality, like Avalanche users like will never get to see a like a block reorg. And yeah, we believe like such fast finality is essential in gaming. Like imagine a game user like buys an item, but later finds out the transaction gets reverted. In this case, the user just lost the item. And then like this kind of fast finality is also essential for breaching in the multi-chain world. Like because otherwise you have to wait longer to ensure that the source chain had no like a deep reorg. And then also fast finality is essential for like a payment. Imagine the merchant receives the payment in USDC, but after 20 minutes, like due to like a deep reorg, the transaction gets reverted. Like in this case, the merchant just lost the money like for the goods he sold. So Avalanche achieves the fast finality without compromising on the decentralization or lower security of like a small committee size. And then also it can scale the validator set to millions and then still achieve the subsecond finality. And then, yeah, this is the frequently asked questions on our consensus. So yeah, in distributed consensus, the safety is a property of like agreement, like a meaning, like once a node makes a decision, like the other node will not make a conflicting decision, such as like a double spend, like a spend the same amount of money from the same like a wallet, like a twice. And then the liveness is a property of termination, like where correct or like a non-faulty processes like we eventually reach an agreement and then produce a single value to make progress. So the classical consensus protocol or PBFT has a deterministic like a safety guarantee as the proposal only made to the like a known set of correct or good behaving members. Whereas the Avalanche protocol, like which is permissionless, like trade away such deterministic safety guarantee with a probabilistic one. So like that is like a true correct node may make conflicting decisions, but like with infinitely like small probability. So in Avalanche protocol, this safety also like in Avalanche protocol, this safety and liveness threshold can be parameterized, like configurable. For instance, if we set the safety threshold 80%, we can allow like 80% of the network to be like a malicious adversary. And then the protocol intentionally trade away such liveness for increased like a safety, because like we believe that is like a safer way to implement like a payment system on the blockchain. Like you never want to have a like a double spend in the payment system. But the trade-off is the higher safety threshold requires like a more rounds to reach an agreement. Therefore, like lowers the liveness. So the white paper, if you look at the Avalanche white paper, it explains the safety and the liveness only guaranteed for like a virtuous transactions with no previously issued conflicting transaction. And then they say the liveness is not guaranteed for like rogue transactions that are in conflict spending with the previously issued transactions. Yeah, this may sound like the protocol does not make progress when there's a conflict and when there's a conflict or conflicting transactions, but like that is not true. The white paper was specifically talking about the guarantees about the number of rounds to reach an agreement. That is, the protocol allows like malicious or double spending transactions to be stuck forever. To be like a more precise, the liveness for double spending transactions is not guaranteed. That's what that means. Like that's what we meant to say in white paper. But for end users, like if a transaction did not get accepted with a subsequent like a finality, they can simply like reissue the transaction and then it will go through on retries. And then if there is no conflict in the transaction, the node just relays that transaction to the other node to accept. And then the subsample boarding is only for the like resolving the transaction conflict. And then also another technical term we use in the paper is quiescent, which means the protocol remains quiet, like thus efficient when there is no decision to make. And then like which means the node only issues the polling when the node has ongoing virtuous transactions that need to be voted from the peers. And then the next one, yes, like Avalanche protocol is leaderless. There is no leader, like anyone can propose a block and they get the finalized. There's some like a nuance, like a tweet with the new Snowman++ protocol, like we can discuss more in the next slide. So yeah, Snowman++ was like a major change in how we propose blocks in the network. It was released last year, September, like which substantially increased the throughput of the network and then lowers the latencies when like released like back in next September. And then as in like previous slide, like some randomized BFT protocols have like a multiple leaders. And then compared to the single leader based protocols, like their performance is often worse because they are competing against each other. Like if you like propose two blocks at the same time. Yeah, same was the case for the like a seed chain in like Avalanche's primary network. Like seed chain is the EVM chain. Like before we had the like a Snowman++, like same was the case for the seed chain. And it was like before Snowman++, it was possible that like a multiple block proposals like was issuing a block at the same height at the same time. Then the network had to spend more time to choose and then confirm one, like a block among the conflicting blocks. But with the introduction of Snowman++, it is now like much less likely that the protocol has conflicting proposals or blocks at the same height. So yeah, as a result, like a much less contention, and then so like blocks are being confirmed like a much more like rapidly. So the way it works now, the protocol has a single designated proposal, and then you can also call it like preferred like a block proposal. And then yeah, you can think of it as in classical consensus like a Paxos, like where like a followers commit or accept whatever the leader proposes. But unlike classical consensus in Snowman++, the other node still need to cross-validate the proposal with polling if that transaction is in conflict. But like no different than like regular like leaderless like a Snowman or Avalanche protocol at that point. Like if they find a conflict, it just takes a little bit longer to issue the polling. So yeah, it is slightly different than the classical like or leader-based consensus because it has to be safe against Byzantine like failures. And then it is also different than the like a Tendermint leader-based BFT consensus protocol. Like when the designated proposal create like two conflicting blocks at the same height, or like in the distributed systems we call equivocate by sending different messages to different peers and fails to reach the quorum. In the Tendermint like case, like a view change mechanism needs to find a new leader. But whereas like a Snowman++ protocol doesn't require a single leader, like in such case. So yeah, like we are still able to achieve the consensus like effectively by metastable process of randomized sampling, like without the leader. And then next one is the Frosty, next in development. Like we discussed in the previous slide, Avalanche protocol combines the best of classical consensus and then best of like a Nakamoto consensus. So Frosty is the next generation of the protocol that combines the best of classical consensus and then best of Avalanche consensus. So yeah, initial protocol can scale to millions of nodes while being extremely safe, but its liveness was not as good as the classical consensus with well-defined liveness parameters. So yeah, this is where Frosty comes in. Like Frosty protocol will increase the liveness of the protocol without sacrificing the safety. So yeah, let's talk about the Avalanche platform. So yeah, we're not like a singular monolithic blockchain. Like we strongly believe in the multi-chain world. So our platform, like primary network itself, is divided out of functionalities. So X-chain runs on a DAG, directed a cyclic graph with partial ordering used for fast asset exchange. And then P-chain is on the other hand for managing the validators and the Sumnet. And then C-chain is the EVM chain that is executing your smart contract. And then also providing the Ethereum APIs. And then in the primary network, you can freely move assets between the chains. And then to deploy Sumnet, like you must validate the primary network by staking the AVAX tokens. And then yeah, this is to encourage the shared trust model, like because the underlying AVAX token will be used for like cross-Sumnet communications. And then another great thing about this heterogeneous architecture, you get a better failure isolation. Like for instance, even if something happens to C-chain, it would not destabilize the X-chain. And then yeah, this leads to better fault tolerance and then better like reliability. So yeah, the best place to get started is AVAX network. And then we have this tool called Avalanche CLI, which lets you spin up a local subnet within 30 seconds. Like it is a like great playground. So please check it out. So the last slide, yeah, if you're interested in launching your own subnet, like Aaron and Gabriel from Avalanche platform team will also talk about the subnet. And then during this hackathon, like please check out our subnet development, like toolings. And after this event, if you find something cool to build, you can also apply to the multiverse program. And yeah, we have a ton of networks and the opportunities for you to get involved. So yeah, thank you for listening and then have fun with the event. Thank you.
Thanks, Gilho, for covering a quick overview of Avalanche itself. I believe that there will be a few questions that might pop up. Do feel free to kind of drop them on our Discord channel as well, if you have any questions with regards to it as well. Just to get kind of a couple of questions that come in. First question is actually about asking whether for the project submissions, if they kind of combine the Avalanche submission for either of the tracks and also leveraging on the additional sponsors bounty, will they be eligible for both? Yes, if you have actually selected any of the main tracks, which is DeFi or GameFi, to actually submit your projects for, and based on what you're actually building for your project submission, any of the bounty sponsors are actually relevant to what your project submission is. Yes, you can actually make submissions under both, which then your project submissions will line up for both the main tracks and also the bounties prizes as well. Couple more things, which is to that if you're a team of more than one person, please do ensure that every members within your team are actually registered for the hackathon in order for the entire team to actually get qualified for the hackathon prize. This will be very important, and do note that the registrations for the hackathon will close by Sunday itself. So if you have any members that you're forming teams with to participate for the hackathon, please make sure that everyone is essentially registered for the hackathon itself. Yep. And lastly, for submissions, please ensure that you do have minimally a working demo for the project, because part of the submission requirement will be a URL with a live working environment of the project that you're actually building as well. So just kind of a quick overview of your project submissions will essentially be each team, be it you hacking solo or with team members of no more than 4 people. A team leader will actually need to be creating a GitHub link to actually submit, firstly, a project description, secondly, a URL of the demo, and also similarly, a list of tech stack that actually be involved of the hackathon, of building of the project submissions essentially as well. Yep. Of course, if as an individual, you're currently looking for members to form teams, there are a couple of ways to kind of go around doing that. One is actually attending the Gathertown virtual networking session, which is happening right after this session itself. If you need access for the link, you may actually refer them to the participants guide that you'll receive upon registering. But if not, you can also access them via the calendar invite that will be available for you to actually save onto your own calendar in order to not miss out any of the sessions that we have actually lined up for the hackathon essentially as well. Right. If you have further questions, do swing by the Gathertown for virtual networking or team formation. Essentially, some of the Ava Labs folks, including Jay, who you have seen earlier on as well, will actually be there for the next hour as well. Other than that, a few of the AngelHack team members will actually be available on the Gathertown if you have any hackathon related questions that you would like to ask as well. So other than that, really happy hacking for everyone and all the best. Other than that, see you around at Gathertown. Thank you, everyone.